Thanks for joining, everyone. The meeting's opening and letting everyone join. Everyone's automatically on mute. We'll be starting in just a couple of minutes. Benjamin, you can hear me okay? Yep.
Yep.
And you have the screen? Yep.
Yes.
You're not sharing it just yet.
No, I'll be right there.
Okay. So there's people still joining. What happens is once we broadcast, it starts to let everyone in. It normally takes a couple of minutes, so hang tight, hang with us. Okay. We'll start in just a couple of minutes again, everyone. I'm just sending a message. Everyone, if you've been on these before, you know you're automatically on mute. We'll use the Q&A section for questions. We'll go over all of that formally in just a moment. We'll wait just a couple minutes. Again, it's a lot of familiar names on the call. Nice flag in the background there, Benjamin. You get your Spain, Franco flag, Spain.
Franco?
Yeah, your Spanish flag. Tongue in cheek, my friend.
Yes, that's huge.
I'm doing a Benjamin. Benjamin's getting some Benjamin back. Since you always call me English.
And you aren't?
Yeah, we've got just over 100 people in the meeting now. We'll wait just one more minute and we will get started. Okay. Benjamin, are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, thank you for joining. My name is David Robertson. I'm the Coach Education Coordinator, and it's my pleasure to host our fourth webinar. Benjamin Ziemer, this is his second. He was first out the traps last week, and we started us off with his first one, and today he is going to be working or presenting a webinar on developing a game model. So Benjamin, as you all know, is our NorCal President. He's working in a technical department, and he's huge amount of experience having coached at all different levels and had studied the game all over the world. He just recently came back from a trip to Spain, and he's got some great ideas fresh in his head, which I'll let him go into in further detail. So without much further ado, I'll pass it over to Benjamin Ziemer. Actually, before I do that, a couple of quick housekeeping things. I know some of you or most of you have been on these before. This has been recorded. The recording will be made available to everyone tomorrow. You'll be sent an email with a link. The presentation itself will also be made available, as will any materials and documents that Benjamin presents. In terms of questions, please use the Q&A for questions related to this topic. We will do our best to answer as many as we can at the right moment. Again, use the Q&A feature for the questions as opposed to the chat. Thanks again, and Benjamin Ziemer.
Hello, everyone. All right, we'll just go into it. This is the first one, so let's see how it goes. Developing a game model. All right, I put the quote, "To teach a backline to defend will take 3 to 4 months. To develop a player takes years." That's from Professor Vergini, the former youth director at Fiorentina. And I put that there because while the game model is nice, it's only one element of developing a player, in my opinion. So reminders he already went through this developing, and I put in practical development of a game model for coaches in club soccer. So ideally it comes from your club, but we'll go through this more. The aim of the webinar: better coaches equals better players and more enjoyment for all of us. So this is taken from, I don't know if it's the Dutch or many people have this as an aim, and I agree with it. So this was a big message of the course that we went to, La Liga course, and that is the player is the project. So step-by-step development to develop a player. It might be different here, and that the team, players don't want to be the project, they just want to play some football. So you have to be the one that puts that, or is aware of what your club's mission is, the aim of the players that enter your club, and determine if your club is working at a high level. And if so, then they should have thought about this. This is a quote that I found this morning from the Croatian FF, or is it FA, development curriculum. Okay, tactical preparation begins from the first, I'll give you a chance to read this. So basically, for me, this means that tactical preparation begins, and I would even say before, from the first day a player begins to play soccer. And so in our environment, we have kids that begin with their parents and within their community playing football, and they'll already start to learn. They have develop a feeling and insight for the game. Okay, so for beginners, the tactical learning is dominated by free play. That's the ideal, is where they can play, they can be creative, improvise, and they can grow in all different directions. Okay, so that I think is an important thing to remember. After the free game, then they're gradually introduced to the focus game with specific demands. Okay, so this could be that you start to train them within the demands of a system, or a system of play and a style of play, but it has to be according to the age group. And then finally, it's the responsibility of implementing and playing within a system in a competitive game. So model. So I looked this up, and I started this last week, to plan or form after a pattern. Okay, so game model would be patterns of play, something you could recognize for the most part within a model, where you can say, okay, that's the way they're playing. And I have here, I found earlier when I was looking for stuff, this was from the final A course before they shifted and started to do it differently. And they made us break down page after page. We had to watch 2 games and literally do page after page of schematics and analyzing 2 games. And looking back at it at the time, it was pretty clear the US game model versus Turkey, I believe in a World Cup, it was pretty clear how they were going to attack, the wings coming in, the backs overlapping, and what have you. So, and then the other thing is the model, a person or thing that serves as a pattern for an artist. So I left this in, although it's not applicable, that serves as a pattern for an artist. So even an artist is looking for a pattern. And I actually think a game model allows the artist to flourish, because, and we'll get into it later, but by having when you don't have to think about every single decision you make when you get the ball, because you've done it so many times and you know what you have to do, you're actually free then to be more creative. Why a game model? So I think this is a question. So this for me is open or closed game model, and why? There are clubs that don't have a game model. I don't think Real Madrid youth, and I could be wrong because we weren't able to ask this time, but the last time I was at Real Madrid visiting or studying there, they didn't have a game model. Fiorentina didn't have a game model. They said if there are 3 really good attackers, or if there are good attacking wingers, we're going to play with 3 forwards. If we have many midfielders, we're going to play with more. We might play 3-5-2. So they adapted the system or the system and the style of play based on their player pool. And so I'm not suggesting if a club wants to not, hold on one second, please. If a club wants to not have a game model, then they make that decision. And it may be that they let every coach do their own thing, and that's it. But as long as they discuss and they decide why they're going to do it, then don't do it. I would recommend having one. So the philosophy of a game model, okay, and I'll get into the game model, but one is open, which is you have an open model that leaves a lot of adjustments for coaches. Or when we had Barca presenting to us at the La Liga course, they took pride in that there was no plan B. There was no plan B. This is the way we do it, come hell or high water, and no plan B. And it forced the players and the coaches to improve what they were doing. So that would be more of a closed. An open is like a Real Madrid or a combo, and I prefer a combo. So some of the parts of a game model, club philosophy. Okay, so these are listed, and I'll go through these specifically soon. But the one I highlighted was the fundamentals of the game, which aren't in many game models. So when I came back from Spain, I started to get everything I could, every presentation, everything, and look for common elements. And basically, these are the common elements that are listed here. Okay, but the thing I don't find in a game model is the fundamentals of the game. And so those might be, and by fundamentals, I'm talking just things that doesn't matter what you're playing, where you are, what country, when defending, you get goal side, ball side. If the ball changes to the other side of the field, every player should shift over, defending player should shift over to get in between the ball and the goal, sort of thing. So fundamentals, wall passes, overlaps, takeovers, you shoot far post, low, stuff like that. So I think that should be in a game model, because my belief is that's more important at a younger age, teaching the fundamentals of the game than teaching a game model. So here's the NorCal game model. And this was developed by our NorCal technical staff, okay? But basically, these are the elements of it. You have your style of play, okay? So this is just for the NorCal PDP, which is attacking, possession-based soccer, which allows players to have the ball in many situations, promoting development of technique, vision, and decision-making. So behind it is the development. So the game moments, the areas of the field, which is not in every game model, but often they talk about having the different types or part of the field, what they call it. Playing system, and you know what? I want my pointer. There we go. Playing systems, the way to arrange the players on the field. Team tactical principles, individual or collective actions. Team task, player actions. A lot of people argue that the systems don't necessarily matter to the style of play. And I can't agree, because if you play with a 4-4-2 flat, your players versus a 4-3-3 with wingers high up on the field, the actions of the wingers they'll be involved in more individual actions, 1 versus 1, than a player running from the depth and starting when you win the ball, starting further back from the field or down the field. If you're playing higher up the field, you're going to have more width when you lose the ball. So I think there are effects of the way you arrange the players on the field. So style of play, and I'll just quickly go through the NorCal, and then I'm going to show some other game models. And so hopefully at the end of this, then there'll be a template, because I want this to be really practical. So if you don't have a game model, you're able to develop one. by having the template of what game model elements should be. Or if you do have one, you go back and revisit it and then take the next steps, which is where I'm at in my game model. So style of play, you can see the values to support the style of play. And it's interesting because they put the collective above the individual. I don't agree with that. So 100%, I should say. So I would like the individual to be the primary focus within the collective. And so the individuals are the ones that make up the collective, and the higher the individual, the higher the collective. And then the other is intrinsic motivation. I don't care where the motivation comes from. If it's Suarez trying to fight to get to Europe so he can be back with his girlfriend, or, you know, fighting to get out of the, I worked with a guy in US soccer that his, after he'd lost a finger in manufacturing, he decided, you know what, I am going to try and be a pro. And so his motivation, who knows what it was, but I don't care where it comes from. Ideally, it comes from all elements. Key elements when you have the ball, key elements when you don't have the ball. Simple language. So team tactical principles. When we have the ball, create chances to score goals. That's the NorCal vision of football for the PDP and the coaching ed. And then you can see the elements of it, the principles: create and utilize space, using triangles and multiple lines, playing deep as soon as you can. So instead of, you know, if you get the ball, just playing tiki-taka, if you have the opportunity to go score, you go score. And of course, then in a game, there might be different decisions, such as we're up 3-0 and we're in the second game of a 3-day tournament, something like that. So you might make decisions game to game that are different. But you can just see all these points. And then you see we to they, which is when we have the ball and we lose it, what do we want to do? We want to deny chances to prevent goals. Simple. Okay. What are the principles that we're going to use to do that? We're going to pressure the ball back immediately after losing it. This isn't everyone's choice. So some people might say, we're going to drop a little bit, and we're going to counterattack. Okay. But this is the choice that was made here. Get organized and balanced as quickly as possible. Make it compact. And then finally delay the opponent's attack when outnumbered. They deny chances to prevent the goal. That's when they have possession after the transition moment. And again, step by step through the points. And then when you win it. So you've lost it, or they have the ball, now you've won it. So what do you want to do? So then these are the areas of the field. So you have the secure zone, creation zone, finishing zone. Frankly, I wasn't a part of developing this, but I like it. It's simple. It shows the kids secure in the back, be secure, no risk. You're building up, so you might accept risk. It might be, I don't know, a different color for young kids because you might allow them to lose the ball in their development of buildup. But eventually, you don't want to mess around in the back and lose the ball. Creation zone, this is when you move the ball around, trying to advance forward and finding a way to get into the final third. And then the finishing zone, you can see, this is when you have more, hopefully allow more creativity, have different ways to goal from the width, 1v1 from a winger, an overlap from a back, combination play down the middle. The winger coming across like Lingard does for Man U. He comes inside almost as a second forward, and then he might drop in that space a little bit. And Ashley Young, the last time I saw them at least, pushes up as a 2, and they almost change their system in this part of the field. So these are your choices. They have the ball. So again, they define what are the areas and what do they mean during this time, or what are the most important areas. So then now within these zones, how do we create chances to score goals? That's when they have the ball, this is what they want to do. Create chances, score goals. So you can see they've broken it down in the aim, the general principles. Okay, so you win it, exploit the opponent when they're disorganized and unbalanced because they've been attacking. Okay, if they're organized, then how do you unbalance them For me, it's through moving the ball or individual action on different parts of the field, breaking lanes, but imbalance them in some way. And then the team tactical principles for creating chances and scoring goals. So that now we to they, the transition, we have the ball, we're attacking. Now we lose it. Okay. And so in the different zones, they've defined what their first principle is or strategy is for this moment. If the wing loses the ball and they can prevent the opponent from playing forward or prevent them from dribbling, that's their first choice. Second is to force them to, you can read it, an accurate pass or a ball that's hard to control. Then try and regain the ball. But they've defined each area, what the main principles are and what the strategy is. And then it just goes general principles and then team tactical. So they deny chances, you can see, and you'll get this. So, and then they to we create chances to score goals, defending. Okay, so then we have now.
Benjamin, is this a good moment for questions before you?
Whenever.
About what you just presented. Two
Absolutely.
questions.
Absolutely.
Two questions that come up. Jasko wants to know why you feel that the collectives over the individual, or sorry, the individuals over the collective. What made you realize and what impacts your vision on that? You mentioned earlier on that you felt that.
Well, my first part was when I coached in my first club, Roanoke Park Express, and I realized that I had individuals that were better than everyone else. I recommended that they go to Santa Rosa United because I knew that we couldn't give them what they needed. So I already knew if my team was the most important thing, I would have kept these players. Would have been the best thing for the club and for the players or for the team in results. But I knew that the best thing for them was to leave and go to where there were better players. So that was one. Two, I just know I've taken over teams before. I took over an under 15 team that was they were always sort of flirting with being good. The coach wasn't the greatest, but he did a hell of a lot of individual development, 1v1s, 4v4s, 7v7s. He almost played he drilled them with drills, with technical drills, and then he played games. And I took him over, and within 6 weeks, I put in a game model, and I was able to take him to the Final Four of a state cup back in the days when the CYSA State Cup was the top event. And I went to Celtic Cup in LA, and we did very well. And I realized they were badass footballers individually, and I couldn't do the reverse. I couldn't have made them all individually able to break lines with the dribble or individually creative, and just they had game. They were street footballers, but it hit me how quickly I could actually put in a system of play. And every ID2 team I did, every time I worked with Hugo, how quickly we could put a system of play and implement it through lectures and trainings and chalk talks and on the board and video, how quickly you could get kids to understand a system of play, but you can't do the reverse. And that was why I started with the first quote from the professor, the back four. You can train a back four in a month, but to create a player takes years. So that's why the individual first.
So a follow-up question to that, Roberto Moro asks, what if the collective group is better and there's some players behind? Do you keep the players that are behind, or do you send them somewhere else to develop?
Do homework. I don't know. It depends what your level is and what your player pool's like and what commitment you've made to them. I mean, Sac Republic, I could afford to grind and push and eventually say, you know what, I recommend leaving. I'm sorry I made a mistake in your selection, or we made a mistake, but this level's too high. You'd be better off somewhere else. So within my first club, any kid I selected that we selected, and if they came to every training and worked their butts off, then I felt that I had to give them playing time. whether it was setting up friendlies or playing them in a lesser tournament or a lesser game, planning it out. So it depends. It really does.
Thank you.
That it?
Yes.
Okay, so now I'm going to go into a few game models, and this was the first game model that I used before we had one with the Republic. So again, this is mine, and let me make sure this is, we integrated some of this into later on into the academy with other age groups, and we're in the process, which I'll show you, a 150-page PowerPoint that we were in the process of developing when Mikey Varis got taken away to Dallas, and then Simon and I got promoted, but we were in the process of really developing our own game model. So this was our vision. So provided by this, an elite training environment for youth to develop players for the first team. The aim changes everything. So these are the technical areas of concentration, environment culture, which is absolutely vital. So here were the projects. Here we go. Soccer base, style, dominating proactive ball possession, pressing defense in opponent's half. So this is for the 18s. My first year, it took me almost 4 months until they were clicking. And I had taken, Louis van Gaal had said 3 months until Man U would be, you could recognize their style of play according to him, his system. And so I tried to buy myself time and said, all right, it's going to take 3 months. Well, it took longer until it really clicked. And after my first game where we lost to Crossfire, Rod Underwood, the director at the time, he said, Benjamin, we have pressure. We need a result tomorrow. So our second league game ever was at Vancouver. After having played a game, they were fresh. And we pulled off in the 93rd minute, we pulled off a 2-2. I think I played without a left wing, and they never noticed it. We were having problems in the midfield because our midfielders weren't strong enough. So I took Alexis Denisio, I moved him into the middle and literally played without a left wing, and they never took advantage of it. And we ended up grabbing some control of the game and then creating chances. Okay, so here we go. Soccer philosophy, style of play, 4 moments a game, principle. So this is our style of play overview: offensive, creative, attacking, dominating soccer, based on in ball possession, we have the ball. So we try and use simple language, and this comes from way back from Franz Hook, Louis van Gaal. Just simplify, speak the player's language. Creating chances, scoring goals. Patience with the ball, because you also dominate possession and you eventually tire players out. But we always want to play in the opponent's half if possible. I always want creativity in the final third of the field. So if you don't have individual players with creativity, if you haven't given them license early in their development from 6 to 14, and you don't continue to develop and nurture that individuality, the ability to beat someone one-on-one and break lines, even like De Jong does with dribbling in the midfield, then you're not going to have it in the end. Attacking from width, attacking through the middle. I think this is a key element for me that I don't like there to be predictability within the style of attacking. And so if your wings always come inside and your backs always overlap, and it's always that way, and there are clubs that Simon Elliott and I would play against in the youth, at least, that we just knew it was pretty predictable. And so we were able to deal with it before, because we could scout them. I didn't want that. So I want unpredictability in situational football. Keeper is a sweeper, always. Always gives you an extra man, so you're playing 11 versus 10. That's the way I look at football. It's 11 versus 10. And because their keeper isn't going to mark someone. So you always have a free player somewhere. Point forward and point back in the midfield, and then moving a player up a line in ball possession to create numbers up. This could be a defender moving into the midfield, a midfielder moving into the attack, but trying to create numbers up. Defense, simple. Disturb and disrupt the opponent's ball possession, quick transition, to try and play in the opponent's half, defend in the opponent's half if possible, balance, and attack, be aware of losing the ball, and you can see these. The keeper always off his line, ready for balls behind. I learned from working with Simon Elliott at Sac Republic, both in the academy, I learned to change and be more nuanced defensively. Before, I didn't care. If we lost it, get it back. I didn't care. Just go get it back. And I knew most teams that my teams played against couldn't handle the pressure. Later on, as teams became better and you start to play in FC Dallas or New York, or you play, these USL Pro teams, they can break down your transition, and you're going to have to defend in different points and the weather and the travel, what have you. So I would argue for a little bit more nuanced. 4 moments of the game. This is pretty standard. Okay, you have the ball, you lose it. They have the ball, you win it. And the transition moments. So this is just, you can see this in many coaching books, this schematic of the 4 moments of the game. So it's not mine. Principles of play, offense. So now I have the broad view of the way we want to play. Now, principles, formation, 1-4-3-3, point forward or point back, or 4-2-3-1. So for me, I talk about field coverage, usage of space, stretch the opponent, make the field big, depth and width. I always want to have deep and wide, which doesn't come in all systems. Triangles and lines for multiple options. So you always have the ability to play the ball. If you think of a 4-4-2 flat, you might think that there's a keeper, 4 lines of play. In a 4-2-3-1 with the keeper, the 4 and 5, the outside, the different lines, you can have 6-7 lines vertically and horizontally. Ball possession, always. For me, this is the fundamental. Until the teams I coach can dominate ball possession, then you're in a battle. And so I train ball possession so that players can keep it, so they don't even have to think about possessing the ball. And then we integrate the other things. And it's sort of a balance of how you do it at the same time. High ball circulation. So I think by moving the ball around the field, you shift the opponent, you tire them out. Eventually they're going to step wrong. They're going to shift in the wrong way. And as long as you can have your head up, the players, and they have the ability, they should be able to utilize the moments that are created by circulating the ball around the field in your possession. Changing a rhythm of the game. I never had this. We used this when I worked with Barry Holshoff from Ajax Amsterdam, who was the guy they sent over to work for Ajax Orlando. I worked for a year with them. As their national director of education, I went and gave presentations using a lot of this. He put in change of the rhythm of the game, and I've kept it. He said, Americans don't know how to change the rhythm. They don't. And so I think it's a unique ability to read the game and speed it up or slow it down, and know when to stand on the ball, catch your breath, and when to keep the speed high or vary it. Creativity, absolutely. I love creativity in players. And I think that we don't have enough of it within our player pool in Northern California. Most often it comes from the least organized clubs because they just play a lot. And it's also the player pools that generally tend to have more Hispanic players because they play a lot of football. Okay, and then balance is something that's key. As we attack, we are aware, what if we lose the ball? As we defend, we also think, what if we win the ball? So that's balance.
Benjamin, quick question on creativity. Someone asked a question, well, you're nurturing individuality. Does it become a point where the word ball hogging is used? At what point does that ever stop? Or
Ball hog?
Yeah, that was the phrase that was used. So I think the question is just pertaining to, do you draw the line at any point in individual creativity?
Okay. I went and watched my nephew play, I think U8s, maybe Santa Rosa United against Atletico Santa Rosa. There were 3 kids that on Santa Rosa United that hogged the ball. Why? Because they could. And it was the only thing in order to slow down the onslaught. I think it was 9 or 10 to 2 or 3 that Atletico as a player pool was better than all but 3 of the San Jose United players. And I don't know what the situation was, if it was mixed teams, under 8s. So would I tell those 3 kids to don't hog the ball and pass it to somebody that might lose it in that moment? Or say these 3 work there, I can tell they train on their own, they're playing soccer, they already have some of this. I don't know, you have to find the moment. I used to be yelled at by an Italian coach at under 12s, pass, pass, pass. I mean, he just yelled at me, and it made me want to dribble more, and I probably dribbled too much. But if you don't, I don't know, it's a razor's edge, and you need to know your player pool. And obviously if someone, every time they get the ball, they just dribble and lose it, you correct them. I'm not saying just let them do whatever they want. I'm saying nurture, play them out wide, allow them to make mistakes, allow them to take people on, run a lot of trainings that allow the development of the individual ability. So that's more what I'm speaking of.
Thank you.
Principles of play defense. I won't go through all these because I want to show a few different models. Okay, so, but you can just see phases of the game. So when we have the ball, I used at the time build up. I train build up. So this was normally the goalkeeper, the back 4, and probably the midfield. And I would do a passing pattern, then I do a positional game that made them keep the ball before build up, be comfortable with the ball and the goalkeeper in front of the goal, and then go forward. Possession in the middle of the field, train possession, creating chances. So these were the way that we discussed. How are we creating chances? And then scoring and finishing. And then you can see the reverse. And this is taken from Louis van Gaal from years ago. And I've worked this way for quite a while. Phase questions when we have the ball. How do we create chances and score? And so we could ask this, and eventually your players of a certain age should know. How do you create chances and score? And they should be able to say individual action, out wide, the 7-11, beating them, 2 or 3 overlapping, 8 or 10 making runs, breaking lines, the 9 going deep, the 7-11 coming short, going deep. But they should be able to at a certain age, they should be able to identify this. How do we dominate the opponent? Okay, areas of concentration, and a lot of the stuff we've gone through. Phase details. 1, we have the ball, build up from the back, pass from the keeper. No risk, safe passes. So these are little details of each phase. Move to the next phase as soon as possible. I find there are a lot of teams that build up's pretty easy to train. And so you can keep the ball in the back line pretty comfortably because you have a goalkeeper and you have an extra player in most situations. You have 4 defenders versus 2 or 3 and a goalkeeper. So you're 5 versus 2 or 3. So it's easy to keep the ball in the back, but it's more difficult to play vertically. Then how do you keep the ball, but also move them so that you can advance up the field and create chances? And then the final action or pass. Is it from lumping crosses in? Is it getting to the line, a pass back across? Is it, the wing playing inverted wingers and floating in from left or right and hitting a shot from the top of the box? Is it little combination play off your 9? But what are the chances, and then the scoring? Scoring. And then the same for the next. They have the ball. Questions. And I think this comes a long time ago from Franz and the Dutch, and I've just sort of evolved or taken it and created my own document. They have the ball. Disrupt keeper opponents from building up. So if they're going to build, you might later on make the decision. We sometimes, with the Republic First team, we made the decision, let them build up. They're not very good at it. They want to play long, so back off a little bit. So that's different. That's strategy. But in this case, this is what we wanted to do if they did what we wanted them to do. That makes sense. So that's that. Next game model. This, I don't know. Okay, this is my technical plan. I just want to show you so that you can see where I'm in the same moment as many people. I'm revisiting my game model, my document. I'm taking this time to shape it further. So this document I started in 1998 with a Dutch guy who was getting kicked out of the country. He took the Ajax curriculum, the Quick Den Haag, an amateur club curriculum, and something out of a KVB book. And we literally stayed up the whole night and started this document. So here's for me, and then I've added in this part, the vision. I want to define success. If someone's going to hire me tomorrow.
Benjamin, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Can you, any way you could make it a little bit bigger for people to see?
Absolutely.
You zoom in. There you go. Thank you.
So defining success. So for me, if people that have played for me or watched me coach, the only thing I really get angry about is where I'll lose it, and most time intentionally, is if they're not trying their hardest. That kills me. If they mess up, I don't care. But if they're not giving 100%, and so I need to be the standard for that. So then our goals, this depends on the club, strive to develop to their potential each committed player, personal best. But anyway, style of play. So you'll see a lot of the stuff that's been in here. So this was my original document, what the style demands for our trainings. Okay, then system of play. So within the youth, proper organization, spread out in defense or in offense, good field occupation. Okay, I have some things like with the older teams, pushing and playing a 3-4-3 when you're in ball possession, taking a risk as a step. And then, so trainings, and some of this is just musings, but again, this is sort of what leads into my game model. I've tried to define everything, the training content, how the coach, what a parent or they can expect from a coach, what the coach should expect, what the players, what we want players to be. And there's clubs, I've gone through a lot of clubs, and there's clubs that have a lot of stuff like this. Training at home, okay? Education philosophy, player development, coaching club. All right, so here's sort of the playing model, the team. How, if ideally, what we'd select. Okay, key soccer terminology, you've already seen this. Additional terminology. I took cheeky from Nick Roberts. He's a guy that came to Santa Rosa United after my brother, college coach back east. Startlingly good player, this wee English lad that had a turbo, really good player, but he talked about cheeky. Players loved it, and I like it as a concept, so I put it in. Okay, now specific demands of each position. And obviously, Franz looked at this. I haven't developed the goalkeeper. That should probably be a goalkeeper coach. But these are just specific demands of each position in the 4-3-3, tasks for the team during ball possession, based on position game, to create chances, first ball to hit deep. So now I'm taking all this, and some of it's in the Sac Republic, but I simplified it, what I did with there. But now I'm taking all this and creating my own. And these are just observations. And so this is points for in ball possession, tasks for the line in ball possession. So you have the different lines. So the 1, 2, 3, and 4, no unnecessary turnovers. You can see high ball speed, but spell out in each line in ball possession. Okay, 6, 8, and 10 in ball possession in the 4-3-3, giving them, the things for their line. This one I would change with unless you break the line. Never mind. So, all right, that's good because I haven't seen that in a while. So you run with the ball to break the line, but I have to review all this and see if it's still a part of my beliefs. So 7, 9, 11. Individual skills, very important. Guts to take risks. These are all the qualities, 7, 9, 11. So then we did individual roles, and this just over time developed individual roles in ball possession. So these are the goalkeeper. And when I cut and paste these and I give these to the players so that, and some levels, I think with the soul, I gave them this whole thing. Said, here you go. This is my vision of football. This is what we're going to do. I think depending on the age group, I might share this only with goalkeepers. So these are the individual roles. And then tasks for the team in defense, general goals, get the ball back, defend as far as possible. Everyone participates, not at the highest pace. Okay, so the 7 might lose the ball and immediately transition, and the closest player might come and try and double. But everyone else has to choose, is this the moment to go? They don't just go automatically, they have to read it. Deny the long ball. Once the long ball is denied, then, concentration. But these are just qualities necessary and tasks for the team. A lot of these are plagiarized. So, which is, I think, is the best part about coaching. Tasks of specific positions in opponent's ball possession. So this, I think, is one of the key parts of a goalkeeper, is when the other team wins the ball, they should, most of the time, take a step forward, probably depending where the ball has been won, but step forward, cover the back. So they're individual. Okay, then the line responsibilities by now when we don't have the ball. So these are just principles, and you can just see, don't get beat on the dribble in the midfield, kills you. So on the other side, you want to beat them on the dribble if you have those qualities or if you can. Most of the time we just have them pass and pass and pass. So that's, and then I have the rest. I go into training plan, training program, technical goals. This will come out, my next one will be on effective training environment, or so these are tips for coaches, but this is my document that I've used and developed over probably close to 25 years now. This is from the Dutch, and I've added my own things, training checklist, and so on and so forth. So then back to, this is very interesting. I went on today and found this. This is Simon Elliott, Mikey Varis, myself, probably Matt Bernard, the staff at the time, and then Jordan, who's at the Roots now, and other guy, Eric Kronberg, and some other staff. But this is 160 slide. We had to do this for double pass. So if you look at what we started to go through the whole thing. Organization, player pathway, program philosophy, and I can go. So I only show this. I don't think they're using it, and I hope that all of us have it. In fact, because this is, that was our initial thing. Develop professional footballers, and people can make good decisions under pressure. I probably wouldn't use that, but I was part of a staff, so whatever. Player development model, game model. So a lot of this you'll see. Different systems of play, which we were committed to playing. Style of play, and there's stuff in here that I'll probably go through and take out. That Mikey Varis had some good language, I think, that I liked. So here, style of play. But this was our document, and you can see it was still under development. So here's style of play, build up if we could. Why not, one pass back and a long pass to your 7 or 11. They're going to leave them open. Why build it? Why pass the ball through the midfield unless you're trying to control a game or you're tired or, but building
Benjamin, will this document be shared?
I think I can, most of it's in. I think, yeah. I'm going to share as much as possible. So my document I'll share. I have for years. So the first two, and this one I might check in with it's basically ours. There is this, they don't even know it's here, I don't think. I'll get back to you on that. So I've drawn this. So I like this one, ball in, ball back, play here, and he steps in the line. So that's one way of build up, creating numbers up. Here's ball movement. moving the ball around the field. So this is the highest level of your game model, is first a description with words, then a schematic like this, and then the next step would be where they all move, and the final step would be video. So that's the highest level game model that now I'm going to try and get my own too. So patience with the ball to dominate, playing the opponent's half. Move the opponent around the field. Eventually they're going to make a mistake. Something's going to open up. You're going to tire them out. So style of play. Here's style of play, possession to disorganize. Different view. Possession, draw away players from key spaces. We know that this is where we want to play. So we play the ball over here, knowing eventually, once we suck enough players over, we're going to quickly drop the ball back, and then as soon as possible, play so that we're in this dangerous zone. Possession to create numeric superiorities. Numerical, positional, qualitative. This is a big one with us, which this I think came from maybe Mikey Varis. The qualitative positioning, that's Messi versus any one defender. That's Cristiano Ronaldo versus one person. That's a qualitative superiority. Positional and numerical. Numerical would be the guy coming inside and the player overlapping. So I like that one. Creating chances, circulating the ball, wide diagonal pass, 1v1 from the width. And I don't know what that is. And then that's, you can just sort of see, here's some defending. So we just had to define. And again, this was for double pass while we're, part-time or, within having to run a club and do this before we'd ever developed it. Double pass came in for US Soccer and evaluated us. So we had to put a lot of it. You can see it's a work in progress, which is what we told them. And that's the biggest thing I learned from the experience, is just start developing it yourself. There's plenty, it's not rocket science of what the elements need to be. Start to define them, copy if you need to, and eventually you'll develop your own. And over time, you'll develop a document. So this is the movement of all the players when you apply pressure immediately. Or if you're going to drop and defend elsewhere. Balance. As you're attacking, make sure you have balance. Keeper is a sweeper. Show it. And then we went through player profiles. And this actually, we were, even with the first team, every Thursday, our whole technical staff under Todd Donovan, we were going through, and we were literally going through every single player and going through all these points. So we take about a half an hour to break down all these elements of one or two players. And so this is something you do with your, and then training philosophies for me. This was from Mikey Varis, really sharp, learning domains. So that's still me. And then here, where he starts to get in, and he had domain-specific learning outcomes. He could measure, or did measure, what the objective was and whether or not they were learning it. And for me, this was the next level. And he had defined the stages. I think he studied this. But he was really able to break it down and say, okay, who should be able to do this at what ages? So you can see emerging, elementary, or proficient. And so, all right, so enough of this one. Final one, how are we doing on time? Okay, final one, and then more questions. This is PEP. And I found this yesterday. Someone sent it to me, I believe. And I would encourage everyone to go on this, because this breaks down PEP's, and it's not complete. It's somebody doing it, but it's pretty close. But he brings in video and pictures. So it takes video moments and shows with graphics of how they do this. So this is changing their, well, it looks like, yeah, and their buildup. So this is next level stuff. Then This is inverted fullbacks, he calls them, and he shows it. And then here's examples of how to use the interior spaces. This was when double pass came into us. They said, okay, great, you have a lot of information. Now you need to break it down. And our next step was to draw the schematics, revisit all the language to make sure we're careful and cleaning it up, draw up the schematics, draw up schematics that moved, and then, so animation, and then the video. And that, in the end, that's the highest level game model. And so you can see this guy's done it, and this is just some guy online, but going through, and it's amazing how we had the ability to do this through some of the software we used for the first team. And it's amazing how effective it is to be able to draw lines, to show the changing movement of the players. And so in a game model, like here, counter pressing, this moment, being able to pause it and show these moments. So I'm not there yet. So this is my next step for me is getting all the graphics, which I have, I think, drawn. I just have to put them in a PowerPoint. But you can see, and then here. So this was what they wanted from us. We started doing it with the Republic. So this is now what, and just showing the moments that you're talking about and showing it so the players, it's very clear. That's it. Questions, answers?
So a question from Luciano Fusco. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to ask it correctly. So Luciano, I'm going to allow you to talk so you can ask it verbally. Luciano, you can ask the question.
Hello. Thank you, David. Hi, Ben. Thank you for doing this. It's been great. My question will be, how do you guys define the mental part and how do you implement it in your game model? Thank you.
All right. Let me go into this mental part. You know, it's funny. I listened to Peter Vermees a few years ago. They asked him, what's your secret to success in the MLS? And he said, we're fit and our mentality. And for me, that's a given at every other high level. That could be something that at the time, the MLS has evolved since then, but at the time, if you're not fit and you're not mentally tough and able to handle the rigors of professional football, then, so I integrate it into everything. The way they show up at the field. Let me see if, so here's, I did something for San Juan earlier. Here's a few of the things. This is my mentality that I think helps develop mentality. Even during training sessions, you must control the ball quickly and shoot, whether or not an opponent is near. You must retain this concentration attitude. So for me, it's a standard that you recognize as necessary for the players to play at the level. And then it's demanding that standard time and time, every time they show up. Let me see, I have another one from Rinus Michels where he says he'll only include players in his training or in his team that fight every friggin' moment, every training, every game. So I think it's by setting standards and then demanding it. And obviously you're gonna have players that are head cases or what have you, but that's coaching. That's where you have to find the Fingerspitzgefühl, the feeling of how do you reach every single player and find out what makes them tick. Simon and I, we had a player that partway through came up and said, I need to be yelled at. I need to be, you know, can you guys help me get fired up for these games? We were thinking, you're a pro. So I don't know if that answers it, Luciano. Probably not. I mean, I think this is mentality, professionalism, sharpness, attention to detail. If you are that way, then they're going to be more that way. Intensity, demanding their utmost intensity, their utmost effort. I think probably trying to get them to have a growth mindset. I mean, is this what you're, and I can go, let me go into the mental. Luciano, is this anywhere of what you're looking for?
No, I think that, can you hear me? I don't know if I
can hear you.
Sorry. No, I think you did at the beginning when you say, well, I don't know, I just wanted to know your opinion. And to me, it seems that you are a believer that is what you do, what create the mentality, and you don't go through a mental aspect by itself. But
no, I would. Absolutely, I would. I'll be frank with you. One, I think that the training environment creates so much. So that's the most important part. But are you going to have players that need some assistance on the side from a sports psychologist? Absolutely. But most of the time, Luciano, you're at the earthquake. So hopefully you guys have a sports psychologist that helps you. If you have somebody that, I don't know, needs help with their mindset. But most people, I'm trying to be practical. Most people in a club don't have it. So it's a responsibility of the coach to be the physical coach, the mental coach, the technical coach, the tactical coach, the game day coach, all of it. And so I don't know if that, I would certainly, if you had the resources, I would certainly have assistance and I would have a program. My brother at Sonoma State works with a guy from Stanford, a professor, Glenn Brassington, master. This guy, the goal setting as a team, and I used to just sit back and marvel at it. So the personality, the only thing I can develop is, what I can deal with. So that's primarily in the trainings and games. I mean, here would be the way I would look, the presence, charisma. If someone shows up, and I had a very talented player from Sac United in year one. The kid was asleep half the time, but he had 2 or 3 matches where he was unbelievably unstoppable. But most of the time, he'd rather be sleeping. So eventually he quit because he just was sleeping too much. But these were what I try and get: presence and charisma. Get him to have energy around the field, and they call it bioenergy and peppiness and sharpness and alertness, game mentality. There are times where you just say, I don't come hell or high water. If one of you gives up, I don't care if we're down 5-0. If one of you gives up, then we're going to have problems. So, I don't know. There's a level that's needed to play at the highest level, a level of personality. I didn't have it. So as a player, I didn't have it. So that ability to handle pressure, to develop all these areas, the motivation, aggressiveness, work rate, mental toughness, I integrate it into everything because I've had to. If I had a sports performance guy, a psychologist, obviously I'd use them. Is that better, Luciano?
Thank you, Ben. Yes, I was also expecting, I would understand to have an expert in the area, like a psychologist, but yeah. I was expecting you to give us the coaching, and in terms of game model, what is it every day that can also optimize the mental aspect to play the way your game model dictates to play.
So, great. That's,
thank you.
Great. I think I have it. And it's in.
I think you said it. So
yeah. I mean, hey, to do this, to take high risk, it requires alertness and it requires habit. So that's, for me, training is where a lot of this is done. Yeah. tough, gritty. I mean, some of the language we used to celebrate, we would say, not celebrate, but we would say, the Quakes are coming. They're coming to the valley. We in the valley, we work our asses off. We're in the farms, we're in the factory, and we celebrate. We live in the heat. They're coming from this foggy Bay Area. Let's grind, and we're gritty. We find a way. So we celebrated it, and that was just part of our DNA that we embraced. Anything else there, David?
Yeah, Jesus has a question. A few questions coming in now. Actually, Shawnee Takiris, just because it's relevant to this, everything you do daily becomes competitive. Assist with mentality and creating DNA. So that's one related. That's more of a comment, but great experience from Sean. So I think that ties in well.
Yeah, we should have Sean and Luciano both do one of these. I'd love to listen.
Michael Perkins, and this is a similar question to Roberto Moro. Do you vary the application of the mental aspect of the game based on the level of the players, the team, NPL silver, etc.?
Obviously.
And then the follow on is the age group U12 to U13. Do you promote the grind and everything at that age? Is this across the okay?
Yes, I promote joy around football. So this for me, and it's funny. I talked to a U.S. Developmental Academy director who recently, and he talked about how to get like, all right, you've had motivated players recently. I don't accept unmotivated players. I've worked at the bottom level, and there's a way as a coach. Kids like excitement. They like enthusiasm. They like to play. They don't like to lose for the most part. And so there's a way you have to, of course, Michael, you have to adapt it to the level you're working and the age group you're working. But there's also a standard that you need. And so I put it, celebrate the joy of training. I mean, I love to train. As a kid, I loved to train, especially when the trainings were good. I love to play. So I think you create that. And from minute one, you have an idea of the way, the behavior you want, the actions you want, the mentality you want. You describe to them what you want according to their age so they can understand. And then you demand the elements that you should demand according to the age and the ability. So I mean, obviously you wouldn't work if I did what I did with Sac Republic U19s to I don't know, just a non-NPL club, I probably would have been fired. I mean, I told a player to go quit because he wanted to get to college, and he wasn't going to get to college through us because he wasn't going to play because his training mentality sucked. It took him like half a year, and then he scored 11 goals in the second half of the season and went somewhere on a college scholarship. But I refused to play him until he earned it. And I was in his face. I declare war on teams. On the players. You show up, you have an idea in mind, and it's your job as a coach to have an idea of all of the levels, everything necessary, and to demand it of yourself. I hope that helps.
Yep, great. So a question here from Jesus. This has gone back to, I think you referenced Mikey Varis speaking about domain-specific learning. Would this be based more on age group or level, or
Absolutely. Both? Both. And I think that's the highest level coaching for me is showing up, getting like what we used to have to do with the ID2 team. We'd show up, we'd get them. We used to not even get them in the States. Now they do a training camp for a day in the States. And within 2 or 3 days, you're playing in Ajax or Barcelona or. And so you'd have to very quickly put it all together and prepare them to play. And so at that level, you can behave in one way, but yeah, I think it's for both.
Great. Well, at this point, I think we have no more open questions. I will give the closing words to you, of course, Benjamin, but just a few housekeeping things. We will get the documents, as many as we can, to everyone by by Wednesday, the latest, Benjamin. I think the only one you're unsure about is the Czech Republic document, but the other ones, we'll send out, and we'll obviously have a recording of the webinar as well available to everyone. But again, massive participation. We had I think 150 people on the call, and thank you for your attending. We're always looking for feedback, ways we can do this better. On the email I send out with a summary, there will be an area for you to give feedback. So with that, I'll pass it over to Benjamin for closing remarks, and have a safe rest of your Monday evening. Benjamin.
All right, my final thing is this is just sharing some of my experiences. There's many ways of doing this, and I'm humbled. Luciano's on the phone, Sean Shakaris, and they literally should be presenting themselves. In fact, we'll reach out to them to present. But there's many ways to roam, as a professor used to say, and every coach has their own feeling, and some are born or have Luciano's energetic and passionate and has a way of connecting with players. Although Sean's pretty similar, energetic, passionate. But I don't know, there's some coaches that stand back and are a little bit reserved, and it works for them. Gabe Rude, if you've ever seen coach, he has a very unique style. The guy from US Club, very unique style, but he's a very good coach and a lot different the way I am. So figure out your way, figure out your model, just begin taking the steps. I tried to make this practical so that you can sort of see the steps that are the elements that are in every game model. And I'm on the pathway still after I'm 51, I believe. So if you haven't started one, start it. If you have it, improve it, and good luck. Thank you.
Thanks again, and we'll send out all the summary documents in the next day or two. Thanks a bunch. Thank you, Benji.